This is a heartfelt story about two childhood pen pals, Amelia from California and Finian from Ireland, who share a unique bond through letters sent every year on their shared birthday. From childhood dreams to the struggles of adulthood, their letters become a lifeline, chronicling their hopes, losses, and changing lives. As they grow older, their correspondence fades. Finian, burdened by family expectations and heartbreak, drifts into silence. Amelia fears reaching out, uncertain if their bond still holds meaning. But on her 28th birthday, she receives a package. A wooden box carved from the oldest tree on Finian's farm, along with a letter. In it, Finian confesses his struggles, his heartbreak, and his search for identity. The box, once meant for something precious like a wedding ring, now holds fragments of himself as he tries to rebuild. His message is simple, yet profound. Even through silence and distance, some connections remain unbreakable. Before you dive into this heartfelt story, please hit that like and subscribe button, because unique and emotional stories, I bring you deeply moving stories that explore human connections, emotions, and life's unexpected turns. Thought-provoking narratives. Every story leaves you with something to reflect on, whether it's love, loss, or the beauty of friendship. A journey worth taking. If you love storytelling that tugs at your heartstrings and makes you see the world differently, this is the place for you. Subscribe now and be part of a community that cherishes powerful storytelling. Let's embark on this journey together. The crisp airmail envelope, postmarked Dublin, always arrived a week before Amelia's birthday. Every year, without fail, since she was 8 years old. Inside, nestled amongst colourful stickers and childish drawings, was a letter from a boy named Finian. Finian lived a world away, in a country Amelia could only dream about from her small, sun-drenched town in California. Yet, connected by the invisible thread of shared birthdays, November 12th, they poured their young lives onto paper. Finian wrote of rainy days and mythical tales of leprechauns, of his gruff grandfather who told stories and the sheep that grazed in his family's fields. Amelia wrote of sunshine, skateboarding, and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Their letters became a lifeline, a safe space to share secrets and silly jokes. As they grew older, the drawings were replaced with photographs, the stickers with pressed wildflowers. Finian wrote about the pressure of taking over the family farm, the weight of expectation. Amelia wrote about the heartbreak of losing her beloved grandmother, the woman who had taught her everything about kindness. In their 20s, the tone of the letters shifted. Finian wrote about his first love, Maeve, the girl with hair like spun gold and a laugh that echoed through the fields. Amelia wrote about college, about the late nights studying and the exciting, terrifying prospect of her future. Finian's letters became less frequent, filled with apologies and a sense of distance. Amelia understood. Life was pulling them in different directions. Then came the silence. For 2 years, no airmail envelope landed on Amelia's doorstep. A knot of worry tightened in her chest. Had something happened? Had Finian simply forgotten her? She considered writing, but the fear of intruding, of reminding him of a past he might have outgrown, held her back. Then, on her 28th birthday, a small, unassuming package arrived. Inside was a beautifully crafted wooden box, engraved with a Celtic knot. A single letter lay on top. Amelia, it read, in Finian's familiar handwriting. Maeve left. She said I was too tied to the land, too afraid to dream beyond these fields. I understand. I'm sorry for the silence. I needed to find myself again. This box is made from the oldest tree on our farm. I always thought it would hold something precious, like Maeve's wedding ring. Instead, it holds me, or at least the pieces I'm trying to put back together. Happy birthday, Amelia. I hope your dreams are coming true. Amelia wept as she read the letter. She imagined Finian, alone in his fields, grappling with heartbreak and uncertainty. She wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but she didn't know how. She carefully placed the letter in the box, alongside all the others she had received over the years. It felt like containing a part of his soul. The letters resumed, now infused with a raw honesty. They shared their failures and their triumphs, their deepest fears and their hopes for the future. Finian wrote about the struggles of modern farming, the loneliness of his existence. Amelia wrote about the challenges of working with animals, the satisfaction of healing a wounded creature. They became each other's confidants, their silent pillars of support. In their 40s, both found love again. Finian wrote about Saoirse, a vibrant artist who had moved to the countryside seeking inspiration. Amelia wrote about David, a kind, gentle man who shared her passion for animals. They wrote about the joy of finding companionship, the comfort of shared laughter. Years turned into decades. Still, the airmail envelope arrived, a symbol of their enduring connection. They had shared their lives, their hearts, without ever gazing into each other's eyes. Then, on Amelia's 49th birthday, Finian's letter contained a bombshell. Amelia, he wrote, his handwriting shaky. Saoirse has been diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. The doctors in Ireland can't do much. We're going to America, to a specialist in California. We'll be there for a few months, starting in early November. I don't know what to expect. This is terrifying. But I know one thing. I need to see you. After all these years, I need to finally meet the woman who has been my constant companion, my silent guiding light. Maybe, just maybe, seeing you will give me the strength I need to face whatever comes next. Amelia felt a surge of emotions, excitement, fear, and a deep, profound sadness for Finian and Saoirse. She wrote back immediately, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Of course, Finian, please come. I'll be there. I'll be waiting." The following months were a blur of anticipation and anxiety. Amelia found herself constantly checking flights, researching hotels, agonizing over what to say when she finally saw Finian. She imagined him in her mind, a composite of the boy in the early photographs and the man she had come to know through his words. November 11th arrived. Amelia could barely sleep. She spent the day pacing, rereading old letters, trying to calm her racing heart. Finally, November 12th dawned, her 50th birthday. Amelia arrived at the small cafe near the hospital an hour early. She sat by the window, watching the street, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She saw dozens of faces, each one triggering a flicker of hope, a momentary flash of recognition. But none of them were Finian. Hours passed. The cafe slowly emptied. Amelia's hope began to dwindle, replaced by a crushing sense of disappointment. Maybe he couldn't make it. Maybe Saoirse was too ill. Maybe after all these years, their connection was stronger on paper than it would be in reality. Just as she was about to give up, a figure appeared in the doorway, a man with kind eyes, a weathered face, and a shock of unruly red hair, leaning heavily on a cane. Beside him stood a woman with a serene smile, her face pale, but her eyes filled with a quiet strength. Finian. He scanned the cafe, his gaze lingering on Amelia. A slow smile spread across his face. He walked towards her, his hand outstretched. "Amelia?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Finian," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. They stood there for a moment, simply looking at each other, decades of words hanging unspoken in the air. "It's really you," Finian said, his eyes brimming with tears. "It's really you," Amelia echoed. He pulled her into a hug that felt familiar, comforting, like coming home after a long journey. "Saoirse wanted to meet you," Finian said, gesturing towards the woman beside him. "She said if anyone understood me, it would be you." Saoirse smiled and offered Amelia her hand. "Thank you for being there for him," she said softly. "He needed you more than you know." They spent the next few hours talking, sharing stories, laughing and crying. Amelia learned about Saoirse's journey, her unwavering spirit, her acceptance of her fate. She saw the deep love between Finian and Saoirse, a love tempered by hardship, strengthened by devotion. As the evening drew to a close, Finian took Amelia's hand. "Saoirse wants to go back to Ireland," he said. "She wants to spend her last days at home, surrounded by the fields she loves." Amelia nodded, understanding. "I'm going with her, of course," Finian continued. "But I don't know when I'll be back, or if I'll be back." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "Amelia, I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn envelope. It was addressed to Amelia in his familiar handwriting. "I wrote this before I left Ireland," he said. "I wasn't sure if I would ever get the chance to give it to you." Amelia took the envelope, her fingers trembling. She looked at Finian, her heart aching for him, for Saoirse, for the years they had spent apart. "I'll read it later," she said softly. He nodded, a sad smile on his face. "Happy birthday, Amelia. Thank you for being you." He hugged her again, a long, lingering hug that said everything words could not. Then he turned and walked away, with Saoirse by his side, leaving Amelia standing, alone in the cafe, the small envelope clutched in her hand. Back in her apartment, Amelia sat down and carefully opened the letter. Inside was a single sheet of paper, filled with Finian's familiar handwriting. "Amelia," it read, "I've realized something these past few weeks, watching Saoirse face her mortality with such grace. Life is too short for regrets, for missed opportunities, for unspoken words. I've always loved you, Amelia. Not romantically, perhaps, but in a way that transcends distance and time. You are my soulmate, my confidant, the other half of my heart. If things were different, if Saoirse wasn't in my life, I would ask you to come to Ireland, to share my life, to walk with me through the fields. But they aren't, and she is, and that's okay. Because knowing you, having you in my life, has been the greatest gift I could ever ask for." Thank you for everything, Amelia. Forever yours, Finian." Amelia wept, tears streaming down her face, blurring the ink on the page. Understood now. Their connection wasn't defined by romance, but by something deeper, something more profound. It was a love born of shared experiences, of unwavering support, of a deep and abiding friendship that had spanned continents and decades. A few months later, Amelia received a letter from Ireland. It was a short note written in shaky handwriting. It simply said, "Saoirse is gone. I miss her terribly. Thank you for being there." Finian. Amelia knew that Finian would need her now more than ever. She booked a flight to Ireland. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She would be there for him, just as he had always been there for her. She arrived in Ireland on a cool, misty morning. She found Finian at the farm, standing in the fields, surrounded by his sheep. He looked older, more weary, but his eyes still held that familiar spark of kindness. He turned and saw her, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Amelia," he said, his voice filled with relief. "You came." "Of course I came," she replied, walking towards him. "I always will." They stood there side by side, looking out over the rolling hills, the wind whipping through their hair. The years of letters, the triumphs and heartbreaks, the shared laughter and tears had led them to this moment. They were two strangers, connected by a shared birthday and a bond that nothing could ever break. And as they stood there together in the heart of the Irish countryside, they knew that their story was far from over. It was just beginning. The twist was that their love story was not a romantic one, but friendship that supported them throughout their life.